would care about that, huh? Who would care about that, huh? Do you think that anyone would actually care if you disappeared?
Today in Washington, D.C., more than a dozen teenagers have been reported missing, all of them Black or Latino. These are just some of their faces we're showing. There was an emotional town hall last night. Members of the community spoke out, telling their city leaders they're afraid for their families because of what they view as an apparent spike in the number of missing kids. Sadly, though, for that community, the chief of police told the crowd that this is far from a new problem.
The disturbing fact is that we do have that many kids that go missing in our city, and it's been that way for a long time.
We're joined by Trayon White. He is the D.C. City Councilman for District 8, which is one of the areas where a lot of those kids are missing. Trayon, thank you, or Councilman, I should give you the respect that you're due, sir. Thank you so much for joining me. First of all, there's been some confusion about whether there has been an uptick in the amount of missing kids, or if it's that they are increasing the reporting of the amount of missing kids. Did you feel like you got some clarity last night?
I think there's both. I think there is more awareness of what's going on, and the presence of social media has made it more forthcoming so people can know what's going on. It's relevant information in a timely frame, but the reality is the numbers are just too high, and so we have to face the reality.
They are too high. I mean, you look at 2,000 plus every year. That is, if it's one child missing, it's a frustrating and disturbing thing to begin with. Is part of the challenge in this the issue that it's how they're reported if the child is deemed a runaway as opposed to a child that has been abducted?
What we see is that not a lot of abductions is going on. We see a lot of missing persons, mostly African-American girls. What the community is alarmed about, we had a 10-year-old girl missing the other day, but there was no Amber Alert. We just feel like, you know, if this was a white person or from another neighborhood, there'd be more alarm about it. But this been going on for quite some time with little to no press, and so we've used social media, got the community involved to get the word out.
County deputies are searching for a missing 11-year-old girl.
To the very latest now on the search for a missing Winter Springs girl, 11-year-old.
We start with breaking news. Take a look. This 10-year-old girl missing now for more than 12 hours.
Ask any parent what they fear most for their children. Some may say failure, others sadness or being left out. But I guarantee you, most if not all of them will also say losing their child scares them most.
This family is heartbroken and very nervous as this search continues into hour 6.
It's the worst thing imaginable. According to the FBI's National Crime Information Center, in 2016 there were more than 88,000 active missing people cases. More than 4 times that were reported. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children says it helped law enforcement with more than 27,000 cases in 2017. The Black and Missing Foundation says multiply that by 3, and that's about how many Black women and girls went missing in 2014, 64,000. Today, the NCMEC says the numbers translate to 35% of all missing children cases being African American children. 20% are Hispanic or Latino. That's 2 minority groups making up more than half of the missing children population. John Lowry, VP of the Missing Children Division at NCMEC, says children of color disappear at disproportionately higher rates. But it's not just African American and Latino children that are missing. NPR reports as many as 300 indigenous women go missing or are killed under suspicious circumstances a year in Canada and the US. But there aren't any official numbers for this group. Multiple research sites report the government isn't keeping track of them. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children says it's working to stop the trend that seems to be plaguing way too many children of color. They need a lot more people to take on the Nancy Pelosi approach. When she learned the staggering number of Black girls missing in D.C., she said it made her feel like knocking on every attic and every garage to see where the girls are.
It's the second time Jacqueline Johnson cried next to her son Kendrick's grave. The first time he was being lowered into the ground. This time he's being pulled out of it.
Did you ever expect you'd have to exhume his body?
No, I didn't expect to have to bury his body.
In June, Kendrick's body was sent to Florida. The Johnsons hired Dr. Bill Anderson to conduct an independent second autopsy. In that autopsy, Anderson told the Johnsons he'd found evidence that Kendrick died as the result of a blow to the neck and not accidental asphyxia after slipping into a rolled gym mat at school, as investigators in Georgia had said. But what Dr. Anderson did not find shocked them.
When we got the body for the second autopsy, that organs, the heart, lungs, liver, etc., were not with the body.
The brain?
The brain, they were all absent.
Every organ from the top of Kendrick's head to his pelvis gone, and his family had no idea.
We have been let down again. And when we buried Kendrick, we thought we was burying Kendrick, not half of Kendrick.
I'm not sure at this point who did not return the organs to the body, but I know when we got the body, the organs were not there.
So, CNN contacted the two entities that had custody of Kendrick's body and access to his organs. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, which conducted the first autopsy in January, and Harrington Funeral Home, which the Johnsons chose to embalm and prepare Kendrick's body for burial days later. A spokeswoman for the state tells CNN after its autopsy, the organs were placed in Johnson's body, the body was closed, then the body was released to the funeral home. State investigators say it's their normal practice, but what happened after his body arrived at the funeral home was anything but normal.
What was in the place of the organs?
Newspaper.
Newspaper.
Dr. Anderson showed me the pictures of Kendrick's body he'd taken during the second autopsy.
It's a Black Friday ad, JCPenney ad.
Yes.
Stuffing that newspaper in like he was a garbage can inside his body. It's unbelievable.
I'd imagine that that's a different kind of pain.
Yeah.
Why do you think that there would be newspaper stuffed in your child?
I never heard of that before. Never.
Neither had the founder of a National Embalming Academy contacted by CNN, who said it's not consistent with the standards of care in the industry. Nor had the president of the National Association of Medical Examiners, who told CNN he's never heard of this practice.
Why would the funeral home discard his organs and stuff them with newspaper?
The question is, why did he tell us?
So what exactly did the Harrington Funeral Home do with Kendrick's organs? And why was he stuffed with old newspaper? We went to their office to find out, but their response to us? No comment. However, in a letter to the Johnsons' attorney, Harrington Funeral Home owner Antonio Harrington denies he received Kendrick's organs. He writes in part, his internal organs were destroyed through natural process and henceforth were discarded before the body was sent back to Valdosta. It's another disappointing answer for parents determined to know what happened to their son before and now after his death. And they admit they're struggling.
Unbearable, just about. Only thing that wakes you up in the morning is just to keep pushing.
Victor Blackwell joins us now. This is an unbelievable newspaper inside this young man's body. I understand there's an investigation into where Kendrick Johnson's organs went and why. What do we know about it?
Well, Anderson, we contacted the Georgia Secretary of State's office because they issued licenses to funeral homes. We wanted to check on the history of Harrington Funeral Home. And when we told them why we were calling, they decided that they too wanted to know where are Kendrick Johnson's organs, and they wanted to know more about this process, this practice of stuffing bodies with newspaper, something that they'd never heard of either.
How was the family's autopsy doctor able to determine the cause of death then?
Yeah, I asked him, if the organs aren't there, how can you determine how Kendrick died? Well, he says that Essentially, blunt force trauma was not in the organs, it was in the right side jaw, which was actually noted as bruised during the paramedics report on the day he was found. He dissected the jaw, which had not been dissected in the first autopsy, found bleeding under the skin. He dissected the left side as well, did not find the bleeding, and he concluded that that bruising indicated, also with the bleeding, that there was blunt force trauma, that Kendrick took that blow to the neck.
You know, Victor, one thing I hadn't noticed, and actually a viewer who works in gyms noticed and tweeted me about this the other day, was that it looks like all the mats are rolled really tightly, except for the one that Kendrick was found in. That seems to have had a large opening.
The model.
That's Ryan Singleton, a young aspiring model. His story begins right here in Atlanta, where he was raised by his mom.
Somewhere between the 3rd and 4th grade, he figured out that his initials of his name, RTS, backward was STR, which meant star. So he started then making himself into a star.
In the fall of 2010, Ryan left Atlanta to pursue his dreams of modeling in New York.
He landed 7 shows during Mercedes Week in New York, and that's huge.
After success in New York, Ryan and his 2 friends, Antonio Faison and Jared Davis, set their sights on Hollywood. Their adventure was all caught on camera as they filmed their pursuit of fame for a docuseries called Are We Famous Yet?
The inspiration for our docuseries was simple. It was Ryan. We wanted to document his journey in becoming a model.
Once they hit LA, things happened quickly.
We were basically in the inner circle. You know, we were being invited to things that we kind of just saw on television, and we're like, okay, now we're here.
Then Ryan left LA, returned to New York, and suddenly was married. This is a photo of the ceremony. Next to Ryan is Real Housewife of Atlanta star Cynthia Bailey. But that's not who he was marrying.
I found out on social media, Ryan has gotten married to a man twice his age. I don't even know who this is. I don't have a clue as to what's going on.
Ryan married Keith Brewster, but the marriage didn't last, and Ryan returned home to Georgia in the spring of 2013, where things got more mysterious.
He says, tell me the truth. Okay, something bad is gonna happen to me, isn't it?
Then more mystery. He flew to LA, met someone, then rented a car and drove himself to Las Vegas. Then before driving back, he called his mom.
I said, boy, you okay out there? He said, yeah, I'm getting ready to come home. I said, okay, what do you need? He said, I need you to go in my room and get the $100 out of there.
Ryan's mom wired the money to him. Then she received a phone call from Ryan's ex.
I said, well, Ryan went to the West Coast and told me not to tell you. He said, oh my God, his life could be in danger.
Brewster never told Ryan's mom what the danger was, but it was real. Ryan's car broke down in Death Valley on the ride back from Vegas. He flagged down the highway patrol, who dropped him off at this convenience store, and then Ryan vanished. 74 days later, his mom received another call, this one from investigators who found Ryan's body.
She said, ma'am, Ryan didn't have any organs. He didn't have any eyes, he didn't have a heart, he didn't have any lungs, he didn't have any liver, and he didn't have any kidneys. I said, what? That sounds like somebody took my son's organs and sold them on the black market.
The autopsy report answers very few questions. The cause and manner of death, both undetermined.
If you're looking for a causative element of death here, I think that it's an environmental death.
Unforgiving conditions in the desert, 108 degrees, him walking, and all that spells disaster.
His organ was not damaged by animals, not a pointy-eared, tail-wagging, four-legged, furry animal. That was a human animal or animals that did this to my son.
So since this story first aired last night on 11 Alive at 11, there has been an overwhelming reaction on social media for more. Then he went through the autopsy report, the evidence, and the pictures from the scene with his investigators, Joseph Scott Morgan and Charles Middlestat. Together, they analyzed the case to figure out how it can be solved.
Let's bottom line now. Let's bottom line. I mean, it's undetermined now. Do you believe that this thing can be solved, that there can be an answer for Ryan's mom from investigators in this case as to what happened to her son?
From the scientific standpoint, I think that we've gone as far as the road can take us at this point. We've examined, they have examined the remains. Not only has a forensic pathologist examined the remains, but also a forensic anthropologist has examined the remains. There was no sign of trauma. The only thing that they note as real trauma to Ryan's remains is a skull fracture. But both the forensic pathologist and the forensic anthropologist both state clearly that this is probably a post-mortem event. That means after death, and that's as a result of the drying or desiccation that takes place in the bone. Bones became brittle. We're left high and dry. So I'd have to defer to good old-fashioned shoe leather as far as the cops are concerned with this case.
I mean, we have the expert telling us we're at the end of that road as far as the scientific side. So really what it leaves is, you know, some possible testimonial evidence. Maybe there's a witness or two out there that saw him get picked up, that saw him interact with somebody, that may be able to shed some light on what happened after that California Highway Patrolman dropped him off there. To me, the likelihood that we get some clarity, some sort of resolution to this case, sadly, and I say sadly for the family, for Ryan's mom especially, it seems remote at best at this point. But if it were to occur, I think it's going to be in the form of a witness that comes back. Now, we're talking 2013. A lot of time has passed.
The only way we may get an answer here is if there's more publicity about this case, and maybe someone remembers something or feels obligated to come forward. I think that's the only way.
I think that's fair.
Well, you know, we were talking earlier about how
all I do is think about my child and what happened.
Rose Palmer says it's been torture since April 9th, 2018. Everett Palmer Jr. was on his way from Delaware to Queens to visit family. He stopped off in York, Pennsylvania to take care of an outstanding warrant having to do with a DUI. 2 days later, his family is told he died in police custody. And now, more than a year later, they still don't know how or why he died.
The information that we are receiving in a very piecemeal style tells us that Everett Palmer was tased. It tells us that Everett Palmer was restrained.
I think he was murdered. That's what I think.
The 41-year-old Army veteran died after an incident, quote, following an excited state, and that he hit his head on the cell door and was restrained. His body was returned to his family, but missing the heart, throat, and brain. It's not unusual for organs to be removed and held after autopsies. However, the family has sought to get samples of the organs so their own pathologist can do testing, but has gotten pushback.
An in-custody death demands a certain level of transparency that has been lacking on behalf of York County.
Methamphetamine toxicity was also cited in the ME's report, but the Palmers say no drugs were on him and he never used meth. The coroner has ruled out death from natural causes and suicide, but the cause of death remains inconclusive. The Palmers are now also seeking any video of Everett while he was in custody. Until they have answers, loved ones say they will have no peace, clinging to their memories of a veteran paratrooper, a son, a brother, and a dad of 2 boys.
We referred to him in the past as a gentle giant, and that's what he was.
And my son was a good young man, kind-hearted, loved everyone, and no one deserves this.
York County officials have said they cannot comment because this is an ongoing investigation. Shirley Chan for Pix 11 News.
My wife, Linda, and I both worked for the Department of Army. We had 5 children. Lavina was a very disciplined child. Being the first girl, I think she kind of felt, my daddy done took care of us all these years, and now he's got to worry about paying for college for me. I think I'm going to help him out, and I'm going to earn my own money. And she said, I want to go in the Army. She was there 6 weeks. She called home almost every day. The last conversation that we had with her was the 17th of July. She said, it looks like I'm going to be home for Christmas. That she said don't decorate the tree until she came home. At 7:30 in the morning of the 19th of July, our doorbell rang. There's a soldier on our porch. He stepped in our foyer and he said, this morning, Lavina L. Johnson died of self-inflicted wounds. I was just overwhelmed. I fell back on the steps. It was just a total shock to me. Linda she started bellowing so loud. I mean, it was just a horrible echo that echoed through the house. It was just horrible. I said, wait a minute, are you saying that my daughter committed suicide? And he said, her death is being investigated. A casualty liaison came within 2 days. He said, I was told to tell you to have a closed casket. We wanted to have an open casket. We had the funeral, and my daughter, Lakeisha, walked over to that casket. Next thing I know, I hear her, they murdered my sister. Did you see her face? Her face is all beat up. Her nose is all broke. The Army spent 10 months supposedly doing an investigation. I tried to pressure them for a copy of the evidence, and actually it took a congressional act. When you take the information that the Army didn't want us to have, and you compare that with the criminal investigators' report, they don't match. They didn't find her in her barracks, so the Army lied about that. They found her in a contractor's tent. I called my brother Joseph because Joseph has a degree in criminal science. He said, I'm looking at a dislocated shoulder and a broke neck, so somebody beat her up. He said, it gets worse, man. Somebody shoved something up in Lavina. This was a rape. The second autopsy showed part of her vaginal area was surgically removed. I started hyperventilating. I could barely breathe. You look at the autopsy, you look at the paperwork, they were both designed to substantiate a suicide. The medical examiner said that this was a suicide based on the information he received from the criminal investigators. The criminal investigators' decision that it was a suicide was based on the fact that the medical examiner said it. So they blamed each other. My daughter was third generation. I worked for you for 25 years supporting troops. She gets brutally raped and murdered, and you treat us like dirt. This has gone on for 6 years. I got to get justice for my baby. And not only that, I found out that they've done it to other families. So my fight is bigger than just Lavina.